Hello and good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the New Jersey Family Engagement from SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. We are working on partnering with your school. We're going to be discussing collaborative problem solving and partnership with your school districts, families, community-based organizations. So everyone, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. Thank you. So yes, everyone, if you check the chat, please accept that invite because we wanna see each other today. Okay. Okay. And Carrie, have we? Okay, great. So the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. Um, this is our team. Uh, Certainly, if we have any team members, feel free to unmute and say hello. But we have our project directors. We have myself, the training coordinator. We have our regional staff, Tara Semenek, Faith Victor, Alexis Pratt. We've got our PAC uh, community coordinator, Casey Dudley, Stephanie Babbitts, and of course our tech who is with us today, Miss Kieri Tyler, and our co-project directors, Dr. Lanisha Michael Ridley and Ms. Jeanette Mejias. So for those who are not familiar, SPAN, this is a parent center for the state of New Jersey. We work with families all throughout the state. We provide technical assistance, resources. The mission of SPAN is to empower families and inform and involves anyone, professionals, community members, anyone who's interested in the healthy development and education of children, and enable everyone to become fully participating and contributing members to the community and society. We have over 45 programs that cover everything from education, health, mental health, human services, childcare, child welfare. We extend to over 40 national, regional, and local programs, and we are funded by government agencies, foundations, and fee-for-service contracts. Now, our project is one of the newer projects at SPAN. So we are currently in our third year. The New Jersey Family Engagement Hub, it's all about recognizing that students thrive when families and communities are engaged in the schools. And that the data shows that there are higher levels of student success when there are high levels of family engagement. So as a project, we serve as a centralized hub. We work with school district. We work with professionals, educators, families. We're all about providing technical assistance and resources. And we have these webinars that happen on a monthly basis. We work directly with districts, giving them technical assistance so they can develop their family engagement and enhance parents' capacity to work with schools to meet their children's needs. So what we're working on today, it's all about partnering with your school and really exploring why that is important. We're going to define collaborative teams and how that impacts how we work with schools. We're going to discuss strategies on effective communication, collaboration, problem solving, and really explore tools that you can add to an action plan as you start this new school year. So as you are with us here, please take a moment and go into the chat and just tell us who's in the room. How are you attending? Are you a parent or caregiver, family member, professional, community member? And then let's start this process with saying hello. So I'm going to ask for everyone to please get on camera. Before we start anything, let's uh, uh, take a moment. If you need to blur your backgrounds, if you need to, little brush of the hair, whatever, it doesn't matter where you are at. I really want to take a moment to say hello. And Carrie, you can move on to the next slide. Um, I'd like to invite everyone to come on camera and introduce yourself. And since COVID, we've really gotten very comfortable with this whole Zoom meeting. I think we're almost an automatic. We know we set things up. Some people stay off camera, some people get on, but and then they introduce themselves. But I really want to focus on your introduction being intentional, not perfunctory. In fact, as we're coming on camera, I want everyone to take a moment and do a collective deep breath in and out. I don't know if you know, the research shows that that extra breath gets a kick of oxygen to your brain. And let's focus on saying hello to everyone in the room. If you put the cursor in the middle and drag the screen share to your left, you'll be able to make the cameras larger. And I want everyone to say hello to each other. And the reason why is because this is how we see relationships. This is how we see people. And when we're talking about partnering, we're talking about collaborating, we're talking about relationship building. It's important for us to see the people that we are communicating with. Right? So I don't care if you're in your car, in your pajamas, wherever you are. I'm asking if you can, and certainly, if you cannot, I understand. But let's take a moment and get on camera and introduce yourself and say, hello, say whatever you like, who you are, where you're from, and maybe even why you're here. Okay? So I'm going to begin. My name is Kim Rivers. I am the training coordinator for the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. I am a wife, and I am the mother of 3 grown children. My youngest is 17. She just started university last week, Howard. And my oldest is also in college, and I've got a 21-year-old son who's on the spectrum. And I'm going to pass it off to Erica.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Erica. I am a community parent involvement specialist at the Robert C. Wood Early Childhood Center. So we're located in Ocean County. I'm also a wife, a mother of 2. I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old that both go to the Little Lake Harbor School District where I work. And my 7-year-old has an IEP for speech and also a 504 for occupational therapy. And my 11-year-old is in the STEPS enrichment program. So I'm here for both sides to learn how to advocate better for my children and then also as a school employee to improve my family engagement skills.
Thank you. Shayna, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Shayna Wright. I am currently the Chief Education and Community Impact Officer with Hudson CMO. I am a former middle school principal. And I am a wife and also have two children, a 16-year-old junior and a 10-year-old fifth grader. So kind of spanning, uh, the gamut. And while neither have IEPs, it's certainly something just to learn how to advocate for, obviously, my children, and like Erica said, from a professional standpoint as well, to advocate for all the children of Hudson County.
Thank you. Thank you. And the Family Support Organization of Cumberland and Gloucester, good morning and thank you for joining us. Anyone else want to come off and say hello? Come on in. The water's warm.
I would like to say hello, although I can't get on camera right now
That's
because
okay.
I'm working. My name is Rashera Jones. I am the co-chair of West Orange Wolf CPAC, and I'm also a current student at the Lend Bog Center. And I have a daughter who is 12 on spectrum, and I have another daughter who is 8 and who has Down syndrome. And I'm here just to get a lot of information and information I could bring back to our members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to pop in and say hello? All right, all right, all right. So the reason why this is important is because you want to get a sense of really connecting with the people that you are trying to work with. Because these seeds of saying hello and introducing yourself and focusing and locking eyes with another individual, these seeds of familiarity, as I call it, are the groundwork to that ever elusive, but definitely relationship goals for all of us, which is trust. So when we are talking about building partnerships, when schools and families work together, that partnership of support for children and education, it becomes a shared venture. And that is characterized by mutual respect and trust, in which the importance and influence of each partner has to be recognized. So although children, families, teachers, and schools, yes, you benefit individually, but the partnership is really what enhances the entire process of education. And the key points to building partnership is establishing a working relationship. It's supporting decision making. It's about joint responsibility. It's developing clear and direct communication. It's about encouraging mutual respect. In other words, building relationships and effective communication involves the willingness and the ability of everyone to convey empathy and warmth as a way of communicating understanding and appreciation of what everyone else is thinking and feeling. It's about conveying genuine regard and respect for others. It's about talking with, not at, but talking with someone. And, we all know that sometimes even but people we know tend to talk a lot, but they're talking and they're talking, not listening, but just talking. And we really want to develop our listening skills because when we listen to other people, we can avoid prejudgment. We want to make sure that we're sharing our experiences and emphasizing that everyone has needs, they have concerns, and if we can collaborate and partner, we can add value to each participant and have mutually desired outcomes. So please put in the chat or come off, mute, because I want to hear from you. Reflecting, let's say, in the last year, Can you think of any successful partnerships that you've had with your child's school? And if so, what made them successful? Or conversely, if you had struggles with partnership, well, what were they? And how did you address them? And you could put that in the chat. You can come off camera. Oh, I'll come off mute. Anyone? Anyone has examples of things that they experienced that were really, in your mind, good partnership experiences? Anyone? Okay, so I'll give an example. I found that working with my son's school, my son was, he's on the spectrum, and he goes to a special needs school. Well, he just graduated. But I was able to work with them very well on making sure that my son had good behavior modifications. So we had a log that was given every single day that we'd get an account of how he was doing. And that way, if something happened, as parents, we were able to then pick up from, what was shared and address it immediately so that it didn't have time to manifest into some kind of long-term obsession or he repeats, he perseverates. So that was very successful for us. That really worked for us, that we were able to sit and discuss behavior modifications and logging behaviors, and then it was implemented, and then we were able to communicate successfully about that, right? So effective collaboration, it's based on the ongoing participation of two or more individuals, and you can move on, Carrie, who are committed to working together to achieve goals. So next slide. So, and these contributors, they bring different skills and unique contributions to create, to strengthen, and to maintain those relationships. So as you see in the slide, we emphasize labor, collaboration, because collaboration takes work. It takes work. I worked, and I still do work on the warm line at SPAN. And I talk with families all the time. And one of my favorite scripts, I should say, is I always say to families, look, this is business. When you're working with your school district, you want to approach this in a business-like manner. You want to approach this like you would approach your work, right? You want to make sure that you are respectful, how you speak to people, that you are setting up an agenda. Because in that school partnership, the collaborations could take place between families, teachers. It could be teachers, therapists. It could be your IEP team. It could be a parent with the school district administrators. Whatever you're doing, it takes intentional, consistent work. And so working together to achieve common goals. You want to cooperate. You want to confer and contribute. You want to add to when you go into a meeting, making sure that you're adding to and giving something, not just giving up some part or conceding something, but really trying to meet in the middle and collaborate. Collaborate. So how do you establish a collaborative team checklist, right? So we look in this screen, collaborative checklists for educators. Well, educators, number one, I believe that families are my equal and are experts on their children. That is a wonderful approach as an educator when you are trying to really build that partnership with families. Trust that families have an equal say. They are their child's first teachers. They know their child in a way that educators may not be able to grasp. right? As an educator, actively involve families in team decisions because you can bring something to the table that maybe a teacher, educator may not have thought of because they're using a strategy at home that's working. And at the end of the day, finding what works, identifying what works for our kids is really the goal. So having that input from families is important. I meet at times and places that are convenient for families. So as educators, really try to accommodate the schedules of families. Make sure that you are giving them options of times and dates that they are available that does not cause impact their work schedule, and that way they are able to participate. And of course, if you have an IEP, in section 2.3 in the Title 68, Chapter 14, parent notice participation in meetings, that's an obligation that the school district attempt to give families the ability to be an equal participant in IEP meetings, right? But I always say special education policies and strategies really work for all kids, right? So even if you don't have an IEP, making sure that you're giving families the opportunity to meet when they are available. Recognize and promote the variety of strengths of the student and families. So everyone has something that they are bringing to the table that is of value. Give them that opportunity to share what they're bringing to the table. Collaborative checklist for families. So for families, you are an equal partner with educators. Do your share on problem solving and planning when you are working with them to help your child. Make sure that you are communicating because, of course, nobody's psychic, right? So I would say make sure that you are communicating on record about your child's needs in a manner that is assertive yet respectful, right? Treat educators as individuals and avoid bringing negativity to the table. Even if you've had negative experiences in the past, if we're meeting today, this is about how are we going to meet today and resolve any issues that are on the table. And communicate quickly. So as things happen, as things come up, I know that, sometimes we're busy, but even if it means shooting a text, shooting an email, making sure that you are letting them know as things take place about any events, any changes, anything that comes up that you want to get communicated with the educators. If you wait a month and then you got to ask people to remember what took place a month ago, it makes it a lot more difficult in the advocacy process, right? And then in terms of all team members, express the way you talk is about your attitude and words. Make sure that you are not blaming other people, that you're not saying absolute statements like always and never. This is about collaboration. Give enough time and energy to the discussion. And I know that we experience this a lot. You've got 1 hour and the teacher prep period is limited, which means that when you go into a meeting, have an agenda. If you have 5 things to say, write it down. 5 questions, 5 concerns. You're referring to statements because we are all human. And as we walk into a room and we walk into a meeting and we've got all this anxiety and energy, and yes, as adults, we all have that. Do yourself the favor of creating an agenda and preparing for any meeting that you have. And make sure that you're distinguishing between facts an opinion, because we all have opinions, we all get emotional, but start with the facts, because that way people are going to be able to listen to what actually happened first, right? And then if the meeting has tasks, it has some decisions, it requires follow-up, make sure that you're following up in an appropriate and timely manner, right? So as you look at this checklist, and we will be sharing a document. In fact, Carrie, if you don't mind throwing that document in and everyone can go in and see that. This document is called Turning, I think it's Turning the Page, but it's all about collaborative tips working with your teams. And this is designed for IEP teams, but it can be applied in any meeting situation. So now let's move on to communication. Talking versus listening. And let's talk about the fact that effective communication is a two-way process. It involves listening and it involves speaking. Now, you can't listen and talk at the same time. And I know a lot of us have had experiences of people are trying to talk and talk and talk, but if they're talking, they're not hearing. There are times that you are the listener, and there are times you are the speaker. And the way that we communicate, really matters. It matters. Because if you're not communicating well or you're not listening well, that's where we have conflict. We have misinformation. We get adverse reactions. It impacts partnerships. So let's take a closer look at ways to try and alleviate going into these wrong directions. Let's talk about active listening. And if you look at that Chinese symbol there, it's actually the character for listening, right? Active listening helps a speaker to communicate what he or she thinks is important. Attentive listening creates a possibility that a speaker who feels understood might actually be more motivated to listen to you. People are more likely to listen to you after they feel as if you have listened to them. So when you're actively listening, you're seeking first to understand. And then afterward, you want to seek to be understood. It's a give and take situation. So if I want to be understood by you, I think I want to make sure that I'm understanding what you are saying as well. And when someone is talking, when someone else is speaking, you want that person to feel as if you are listening to them. That means keeping your focus on the other person. And you want to listen with ears that indicate care and empathy. So ears are to hear, as it says, the mind is what we use to think, the eyes are to see, but that little blue line in the middle, that undivided attention, is focus. And that bottom yellow portion of that character is that hard to feel. And I got to tell you, and please pop in the chat and comment on this too. But having those listening skills, it makes such a huge difference when you're in a meeting. right? It creates a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Remember posture and body language, making sure that you're facing the other person, that you seem receptive to them. Hopefully, you're not on your phone. And if you're taking notes, take the notes that indicate a reflection, where there's breaks in the conversation. Okay, yes, you're writing down as they speak. Make sure that people feel that your physical indicates listening. Even listening, looking at the physical space and eye contact, very important. How you respond. Communicate that we're hearing and understanding. Sometimes that means repeating the words back to that person. It tells them that you are listening and that they are being heard. Repeating the content. As you said, I understand. Oh, I get it. So you're saying that listening is a key ingredient in solving problems and coming to an agreement. And certainly, we all have that experience when we're in the room and someone needs to be heard. So you want to follow the thoughts and feelings of others so that you could understand what they are saying from their perspective. What's their frame of reference? What is their point of view? Because yes, unfortunately, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And we've been there. So you're talking to someone and they're talking and talking, and then they're coming in. They're just waiting for that break in the conversation so they can jump in with a reply. And depending on what they are saying, you now realize whether or not they actually listen to what that you just said. And how do you feel? How do you feel when you're having a conversation with someone and then they say something or they ask a question about something you've just said, and you realize in that moment that they have not heard a word that you just shared? You've poured out your heart, you poured out your soul, you've laid out all your arguments, you did the thing, it was so good. And then they ask a question that indicates, oh, nothing you said just mattered. How do you feel? You could pop it in the chat. You could come off mute and, at any point, please, please, please. This is not one of those webinar situations where I want you to be quiet. I want you to speak. Why? Because that tells me that you're listening. And we all have these experiences, not just in meetings. I mean, even at home with your partners. Did you just hear what I was saying? Were you listening to me? Because depending on if I feel as if what I have just said has value, has landed on the other person, then that's going to inform whether or not I continue even communicating. And guess what that also does? It can break trust. Breaks trust. And like we said at the start, that is the relationship goal for any relationship, is how do we foster that sense of trust? And thank you, Jeanette. When you feel as if someone's not listening, you feel dismissed. Erica, yes, you feel discouraged. You feel disappointed. It brings in that kind of negative energy into that relationship, into that moment. And now you stop listening yourself because you're processing your own emotions. You're processing how you're feeling. And we all work through processing how we feel every day in every situation. Yeah, you check out. Conversation's over. The partnership, that team collaborative spirit gets impacted immediately. So let's talk about what we go into a meeting. Any meeting. We're coming into a meeting. And people come in with positions and they come in with interests. And I'll explain. So everyone comes into a meeting with a preset, you tend to have a preset stance on what it is you're asking for, right? You're very clear. You come in, I say, look, I need a different teacher. I want my child to have less homework. I want extra speech therapy for my child. I have a problem. This is what I want. So that position tends to be the what. What are you asking for? And families walk in and that's the first thing in their head. That's, very clear. Likewise, the educators, administrators, you also have a what, a position, a kind of a preset limit as to what you are willing to concede, right? And then we are off to the races, both parties haggling over what I want, what I'm given, what I want, what I'm given. And often that listening is not present because people are listening to respond and not listening to really hear what the other person's needs are. And those needs are what we call the interests, right? What is the underlying challenge? What is the actual underlying concern? In order to facilitate effective communication and collaboration, you have to identify, you have to discover, you have to acknowledge what exactly is the underlying interest in that conversation, as opposed to what the asks are, the position. In order to come to an agreement, you've got to identify what the concerns are, because identifying those interests, that underlying issue, doing that, you can actually start a negotiation. Because when we identify the why is this parent in the room? I'll give you an example. Instead of saying, my child needs 3 sessions of speech, and that's what I'm asking for, the actual interest, concern, the why might be, my child is struggling to communicate, and I'm not seeing any progress. And I am very concerned about their ability to function at school because of that communication with speech. Instead of saying, I want less homework, it could be, I'm concerned about my students' progress. They seem to be falling behind. The homework seems to be overwhelming them. I'm not sure what it is, but it's starting to impact their confidence. They can't function. They seem as if they're unable to handle it. If you ask for something specific and you're locked on that idea of the what, that specific thing, you might be missing out on the different paths to getting that need met or even over met, because that educator, that administrator might actually have some ideas that might go over and above 3 sessions of speech or no homework. They might have a way in which they can meet those needs in a creative way based upon their professional ability, their ability to differentiate the instruction, the ability to modify the programming or modify the amount of homework or break down the work in a way that is easy for your child to absorb. Right? So solutions can be found if we separate the focus on the what or the positions and instead focus on interests and find options that have mutual gains. And the objective is to really meet in the middle and have problem solving and find agreement. So here are some examples of underlying interests. Students placed in my class must be able to do all the work I assign. That's coming from a teacher, obviously, right? My child has a right to a full-time aide. Well, that might be true. But is that really what the parent is concerned about? You can start with, what are the needs? My student is struggling with focus. My student seems to be falling behind. And be open to ways in which that can be addressed. This is a good one. My child needs Wilson reading. And Wilson is one reading program. And that parent probably heard about Wilson reading from another parent who said that works for their child. But guess what? Every student is different. Every student learns differently. And in order to identify what that student needs, it starts with an evaluation. It starts with an assessment of where that child is at. What exactly are their challenges? And you might be surprised that maybe it's not Wilson, maybe it's Orton Gillingham, maybe it's Reed 180, all the different other options. Maybe that student just needs to be have more accommodations. Sit in the front of the classroom. Let's figure out what works. What works? So how we communicate our interests are also very, very important. I think sometimes we've experienced people coming into a room and their energy is aggressive. And sometimes we also experience people who are able to be in a room and communicate the same exact things without that aggressive energy. And it's assertive. So what does it mean to you when someone's aggressive? How does it feel when you're sitting in a meeting and someone comes in with that really aggressive energy? Yes, thank you, Jeanette. It feels intimidating, right? You feel that negativity. It feels toxic to be in a room when someone's really angry and aggressive, right? So that hostile tone, when someone starts talking like that, and no one else has any ear in the room, there's no other viewpoints that matter. And we've all kind of experienced a meeting where someone is like that, and it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. Versus being assertive. This is where someone is able to state their interests, state their ideas clearly with confidence, but with openness, listening ears, the ability to see and hear someone else's point of view. And that interest-based communication that really can shift the tone of that meeting from that your position versus my position. You want to shift that to really the main concern, which is what is the needs of that child? And when you put into practice that process of working out an agreement in that interest-based way, you can change that negotiation behavior. And it's not trying to change the other person. You're trying to really have an appropriate tone for that meeting. And interest-based communication recognizes that it is important to deal with people as human beings. And human beings have emotions. Everybody has values. You come from different backgrounds. Everyone has a perspective, and that is okay. But we have to find a way together where we can explore, listen to each other's interests, and move the conversation towards exploring options, creative options, that will meet the needs of that child. The discussion and the focus and the primary goal is the child. And that requires active listening in order for us to really find agreement. So communication strategies. Everyone should have found that document. Carrie, if you have it, please pop it into the chat. But these are some strategies that you can use to really solicit or seeking information. This is about being a good listener, asking the right questions, understanding the other person's perspective, their needs. Before you can build a strong partnership, you want to start by asking open-ended questions. And what that means is instead of those simple yes or no answer, for example, instead of asking, do you have a lot of after-school programs? That's a good question. But is it an open question? Because that question will result in a yes or no answer, right? Try instead asking, what are some of the key after-school program options that you currently offer? And can you share what those primary goals are for each program? That's open. Because then now you have a much more detailed response. See, the goal is to get a more 360 view of the situation. Ask about current initiatives. Ask about what's been successful. Ask about what challenges has been faced. What about the goals for the school year? This helps you identify areas of potential alignment because everyone wants this. Everyone wants success. What are the areas of potential alignment and mutual benefit? Remember, actively listening and taking notes, it shows respect for their time, respect for each person's expertise, and it also ensures you have accurate information to refer to later. Clarifying information. This strategy is crucial for preventing misunderstanding. So it's not enough to just receive information. You want to make sure that what I'm hearing is correct. So maybe consider rephrasing what you've heard in your own words. For example, so if I understand you correctly, your primary goal for this partnership is to increase student attendance by 10% this semester. And then this gives the other person a chance to confirm or correct your understanding of what they just shared. Ask for specific examples to make abstract ideas more concrete. So if your person talks about improving student engagement, you might say, okay, but could you give me an example of what that looks like in a classroom setting? The idea is to build a foundation of shared meaning so everyone gets on the same page. Negotiating through consensus building. Now, this is a collaborative approach to negotiation that moves away from that win-lose mentality and moves towards a win-win-one. And this is about finding common ground. This is a solution that everyone can get behind. So it starts by identifying the shared goals and interests of all parties involved. What is a common thread that connects everyone? What is it we all want? Student success, community well-being, partnership. Encourage brainstorming, open discussion, multiple solutions. Don't just get that first idea and latch onto it. List options. What are the options? How are we considering these options? Even if it seems far-fetched at first, because you know what? That far-fetched idea, that crazy thought, might have some real value if you listen. Use a criteria-based approach to evaluate the options. Together, decide on the criteria, the feasibility, the cost, the impact. Remove your personal bias so everyone gets on the same page. Soliciting participation. A partnership is not just about leaders, it's about everyone on board together. This is about actively seeking involvement, making everyone feel valued. That means inviting everyone to participate, that time and date, their availability, what really works for them. Be specific about their involvement, what you're asking. Give them a variety of ways to participate. Be appreciative of what they're bringing to the table. So educators, when families come in, making sure that you say, thank you for being here. It goes a long way. The little things, the little things. We walk into a meeting. How do we get that good energy? It's checking those little boxes. Hello, good morning. How are you? Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your time. Show appreciation. Acknowledge their contributions. What you have shared is wonderful. I understand. You know, you're giving me food for thought. This gives me something to work with. Summarizing. This is a powerful tool for keeping a conversation on track, making sure everyone is aligned. It's also a way to hit that pause button and review what we've done so far, right? So you're in a meeting. Okay, so just to be clear, this is what we've said so far. And for those families I've spoken with, send a thank you letter where you summarize the content of your meetings. That way, whatever you've discussed, whatever you've agreed upon, you put it in writing, put in a nice, lovely thank you letter. That person feels heard, they feel listened. You've also documented whatever has been agreed upon and put it on record. And this really helps people move forward. And check for agreement at the end of every meeting. So we're on the same page. This prevents any unspoken concerns. You know, directly ask, are we in agreement on this? Are we clear? Look for verbal and nonverbal cues, right? Tone of voice. Does someone seem hesitant? Do they seem, okay, wait. You okay? Did you get that? Okay, I'm not okay. What do you need? And don't be afraid to speak up. You know, I think families, we do that a lot where we don't speak up. You're in a meeting. This is the time and the place to speak up, to address any disagreements, any concerns. This is how you build a healthy partnership. Work through these challenges now so they're not sitting in the wings later on. And then if necessary, take a break, you know, because sometimes people just need to think and take a step back. Sometimes especially when you have intense discussions and you can't find agreement, a break when emotions are running high, when you can say, this is a really important and complex topic. You know what? Let's take 10 minutes to gather our thoughts, give people time to reflect, and let's reconvene so we can start fresh. And of course, when you reconvene, start with a summary of the last point of discussion and then open up. Okay, so this is what we discussed. Okay, any new thoughts? How can we have a more productive conversation? So that document, turning things around, it's been shared. It really has a lot of really wonderful strategies that we can utilize for changing how we meet, how we negotiate, how we find agreement, and how we partner with our school teams, with our districts, with our families, so that we can have a more productive communication. And then the new year starting, have an action plan. What are you going to do differently this year? Because we've discussed some wonderful strategies about communication and collaboration and team solving and advocacy and involvement. Make a new plan for how you're going to work with your teams. We've got communication tools. And certainly, if you're an educator, look at the data. As a parent, you can look at the data of what's happening within the state. Get involved. Join groups, join your PTA, join your parent classroom team, be a class parent. Volunteer to be in school. Really get a sense of what is happening so that when you come to the table with ideas and concerns, you're coming with informed concerns. And ask questions. There's so many ways for you to get involved. And look out for those back to school updates. Look out for any surveys that are happening. As a parent, you can create a positive student profile, talk about your student. You've got a new teacher coming in this year. So we have that will be in our resource folder. So when you do our survey, you can access a resource folder and you can get the positive student profile, the turning things around strategies. So if you have an action plan for this year, anyone want to share any ideas about what you're going to do first? What is something that is one of the takeaways that you want to do this year based upon what we've shared so far?
I do have a question.
Yes.
I have a question. How do I approach getting the Board of Education candidates to answer concerns of our members and parents for the new year, with knowledge that the parents know about a huge budget cut that's happened to our district? How do we go about putting those type of questions together to where we could represent our members effectively?
I got to tell you, when I speak with families about communications in general, especially where concerns are fraught, I think it starts with some honey. I always feel that people are more willing and able to listen to you talk about what they need to do better if you start with what they're doing well. And that's my 2 cents, but really, thank you for everything that you do. We have been grateful for the ABC of this, that, and the other, your leadership, yada, yada, yada. Here are some things that you might want to consider. And these are the needs of the group that I am representing. Here are some dates and times that we are available to meet. Please let me know what works for you, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. I always tell families, look, when we were young in this process and my son was in preschool, starting with an IEP, we always brought coffee and donuts to our meetings because I want to set the tone that we're here to find agreement and that positivity makes a difference. And certainly, of course, as you know, at SPAN, we have all these wonderful supports and programs. Call in, get on our calling list, and someone will get back to you and really, go into depth about options, I'm assuming with the CPAG for the district. Thank you so much for that question, Ruchira.
I
And
appreciate
then
it.
thank you. And here is a wonderful activity sheet that we have that also will be in the resource folder. Some strategies for about family school partnerships for elementary, middle, and high school. You can print this document. It has resources and information that really might be useful. And please, 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 it's survey time. So you can use your phone and access the survey on this QR code. It also will be in the chat, and I'm going to pop it into the chat myself. There we go. Please fill the survey out. Give us feedback. This is going to be one of many different offerings we'll be doing in terms of workshops, but our project also has monthly webinars. So for example, next month in September on the 12th, we'll be doing a workshop on chronic absenteeism. It's going to be really good. I think that is something that everyone really wants great information about. And of course, our SPAN conference is coming up in September on the 27th. And it's always amazing. We have it every 2 years, a biannual conference. So please register for it, join us. And sorry, that date for the chronic absenteeism is Tuesday, September, is it the 9th? Yeah, we do our workshops on the second Tuesday of every month, our webinars, second Tuesday of every month. And then we also have a series on parents as champions for healthy schools. These sessions are invaluable in helping families really learn how to develop healthy situations for their kids, whether it's mental health, academic health, food, etc. It's really wonderful workshop series. It takes place. And then we also have our family math community of practice, and that's coming up as well. And that's going to be delivered by NAFSCI, which is the head for National Family Engagement. Okay, so 10:05, thank you for 1:05. Thank you everyone for staying with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please, if you go on Eventbrite and you follow the SPAN Parent Advocacy Network, you will see all of the offerings that we have. Please join us. And I thank you so much for being here today on behalf of the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub and SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. Thank you. And go out there and create your action plan for this upcoming school year and find agreement and partnership